Hello, welcome. I'm Hannah, and today we're going to be talking about the Glamlite Rick and Morty palette, a bunch of different thoughts that I have about it, and what I'm going to do about it. Glamlite, to me, is kind of a weird brand. If you remember, they started out with their food-inspired makeup, and every single launch was like a different type of food made into a palette, which I had no interest in, especially since the foods were like really meaty, and I don't want that. I don't want that in my makeup collection. And then they did this big jump into IPs, and they're just like another collab brand where time and time again, they're putting out palettes that kind of prey on your like nostalgia or your enjoyment of another product. Now, I will say with the Rick and Morty, I feel like I would be a Rick and Morty fan. I just never like watched it that much. I've seen a couple episodes here and there, but I never like got in the habit of putting it on. But my feelings about Rick and Morty are pretty like, I'd say neutral to positive. But the weird thing I think about this collab is the first time I saw a post about it was just like, here's the palette. You know? Other launches they've had, they will like tease the IP for a while. They'll have like a theming post and they'll be like, can you guess who we're collabing with? And then they'll reveal who they're collabing with, and then they'll reveal each and every product slowly up until the big palette. And I don't follow the owners or anything because I know that maybe, you know, it's possible there were sneak peeks if you do follow them, but just on the Glamlite page, usually there's like more lead up to the reveal. That doesn't really matter for anything. I'm kind of just like thought dumping at the moment, but I did think that was kind of weird. But my first impression when I saw the palette was I really liked it. I was drawn to the brights in it, and the particular post they put up, I'll put the picture here, it looked more interesting than I now think the palette is. I feel like the top row of shimmers look really multidimensional. It almost looks like some of my Terra Moon shades do in the pan, where like you can make out a color in them, but there also seems to be like a mishmash of like weird colors within it. However, something that I saw pointed out in Faces by Gina's story was that this picture is really blue, and she color corrected it in her stories to make the eyeballs white. So then you could tell that the colors weren't as like interesting as they seemed in this picture, which is kind of a weird marketing thing too. I don't know. Either way, weird release. They often have pre-orders. This time everything was like ready to ship, so it's like, why was everything ready to ship and you didn't even like post a picture of it until like a couple days before? I don't know. Weird. But I've been arguing within myself about the fact that I'm interested in this palette. And actually the other day when I did my Yucca palette dupe video, I think that was the day that I had first seen this palette, and I considered making like a dupe palette that night, and I was like, you know, I know that Glamlite isn't my favorite. I can't count on loving their palettes, and in fact, last time when I tried the Chucky palette, I said I was probably going to be taking like a break from Glamlite. So I was like, you know, I don't need that level of convincing. I'll just do my Yucca palette video. And then last night, I felt really close to buying the palette. I was on the website and I was like, you know, I haven't bought any makeup for my channel this month. I could just buy this palette, and like, it's not that expensive. I think it retails for like $32 or $36, and then they have a discount code you could use, and even with shipping it was like under $40. But I could tell that I was tricking myself. And I was also thinking that like this huge palette with a huge graphic of Rick and Morty on the front of it, like I really want it like sitting here on my desk endlessly, you know? So after that moment, after that like 10 minutes of panic were up, I was like, you know, why don't I just put together like a Dupe the Vibes palette? I don't think I have every single shade exactly in my collection, but even if I did, that's not the point, because there's only certain shades that I see in it that make my heart flutter a little bit. For example, there's some matte brights, there's that bright green, there's a really pretty like sky blue shade, there's my idea of what I thought those lighter shimmers would be, there's a pink that I thought looked like a really pretty shiny, almost dulled down pink. I don't think it really is based on the swatches, but like I thought that for a second and it made me excited. And I was like, why don't I just look at my eyeshadows and I'll put together a small palette just of the shadows that I have that are reminiscent of the ones that I was actually excited about. So I did that. I know I've probably been talking for so long and I'm finally getting to the good stuff. Thank you for bearing with me. Here is the palette that I threw together. So some of them are a bit direct comparisons. Some I kind of just like threw in there. So I have Cleona Emblem and Terra Moon's The Cosmos. These are so beautiful, and I thought of these as what I thought those top shades in the pan looked like. Emblem is like very green and pink. The Cosmos has a blue base, but this like gorgeous yellow and red shimmer to it. And I don't need whatever Glamlite's attempt at shadows like this is, if it even is that kind of attempt, because I have the best ones. And I love these. Next, of course, I was inspired by that blue in the palette because Menagerie Cetacean is one of my favorite shadows of all time. And looking at that, I'm like, I just need to look at Menagerie Cetacean. So that was an obvious pick. And then this pink, I pulled out Luxie Pixie Dust. As I said before, the idea of the pink that I thought it might be is this kind of tone, which I think is really pretty. And I never use that shade. The next one in here is a little bit of a stretch. I don't think there's an inner corner shade like this, but I put in Water Mist from Divina because I wanted to fill the 12 pans in here, and I thought that would like work with it. And this is an example of something that I think does go with these colors. I love having an inner corner shade in a palette, and this is something simple that makes this so much more me than what they're selling. So Divina Water Mist, and then I pulled out Menagerie Tide Pool, which is that really pretty mint. This shadow is also part of my random palette selection for June, and I had it on my eyes in that video, and I was really enjoying it. I had to pull out my Terra Moon's Neons. We have Fourth Dimension and Cosmic Blaze. I really like these shadows. I often enjoy throwing them in custom palettes. And I think in the Rick and Morty palette, the bright green is probably what I was most excited about. And the combo of it being so close to the like neon orangey shade, I just really like them together. And it's like, okay, cool. I can just put them next to each other. There was also a hot pink in the palette. That did excite me less, but I still thought to put it in this palette because it excited me enough for that. So I pulled in Glaminatrix Petal, and then Luxie Snickerdoodle was another one that I thought it looked good in this palette, but it's not a direct comparison to the Rick and Morty palette. It's so pretty. And then the final two are also Terra Moons. This blue, I wanted a blue that was slightly deeper than the lighter blue because it seemed like that palette had both, and that's something that excites me. So I pulled in Terra Moon's Atlantis, and then also Terra Moon's Arcturus. This is one that's not directly inspired by the palette, but I thought it just looked so good. I loved the like rich warmth of this, especially with so many cooler toned mattes. Again, that's a shade that makes this palette so much better than anything that I know Glamlite could come out with. How pretty. And then it's funny looking at these swatches because I feel like this just looks like such a neon palette, but that's what drew me to the Rick and Morty, and that's why it's not a good purchase for me. Because even looking at these together, I don't have that big sense of like, ooh. If it was a smaller, more curated palette where the only pops go to this green and this coral, I could see myself liking it more. But I feel like the brights get lost within the color story, and I can't imagine myself using all of them together anyway. Okay, so we're zoomed in, I have my eye primer on, and I want to do a look. I should have said before that as opposed to my usual palette duping videos, this one's really like a duping the vibes video, which is very Hannah Louise Poston. And I find that in her videos, she's often attracted to palettes that house the shadows that create her normal everyday looks. And then she ends up with one of her normal everyday looks and realizes that she, of course, didn't need the palette because she already had the supplies. I find with this, I'm drawn to this for reasons that are beyond what I normally do in a day. So although using something like Emblem or the Cosmos would be in line with my normal everyday looks, that's not what grabbed me the most about this palette. What grabbed me was the bright colors. So although this isn't my normal everyday look, I think it will have the same outcome, because either I won't love it and I'll be like, why do I want to buy that anyway if I don't want to use those shades? Or I do love it and great news, I already owned all of them. So yeah, although it's not my usual thing, I just want to do like big and matte. So I think I'm going to start with Terra Moon's Atlantis. Terra Moon's mattes are very powdery, but hopefully they'll still look good. And either way, my experience with Glamlite is that their mattes are very like watercolory, very light, and can easily be patchy. So it's not even like I'm confident that I would get a better look with the shades in that palette. I do think this is coming out like really nice to start though. Okay, then I'm just gonna wipe off and use the same brush. Oh, usually I'm wearing a sock I can rub my brush on, but I'm not right now. I am gonna go in with Fourth Dimension. This green is so bright. I can't believe how much more vibrant it looks on my eye than I feel like it does in the swatches, right? I don't know. Yeah, these aren't going together the best, and I think that is just because of the formula. And then the next blend is going to be even worse, because those colors are not going to make sense together at all. Okay, so next I'm going in with Cosmic Blaze. And I think the blend's just going to have to be one of those things that, like, whoever's looking at me, which is going to be actually the people in Stop and Shop really soon, because I'm going to go get a pizza. Okay. My cat is snoring on the floor, if you hear noises that sound like cat snoring. I'm going back in with the green to build it up. I feel like we lost some of the pigment. Maybe I really need to, like, give up on the blend at all, because I think the blending the blue with the green is kind of like losing the green. Do I love it? No. But this is the look. This is what these kinds of colors look like together. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna put on my base and we'll be right back. Okay, base is on, and I'm not really feeling this look. I know it would come together a bit more with the mascara and lower lash line and all that, but I feel like I already made the point to myself that the thing that I'm drawn to about this palette is not what I like on my eyes, and I don't think it would be any different if I was using those exact shadows. So I feel like I have nothing to lose by adding shimmers on top of this. So looking at my palette again, I think I will do Arcturus on the outer part, maybe just over or by that orange, and then perhaps I'll do the Cosmos on the inner part. I mean, I could even do Emblem in the middle too and kind of incorporate 3 different shades, but I don't know if that would make any progress in me liking this. I don't know. I'm just gonna dive in and see. So starting with the Cosmos. That's not really doing much for me. It just looks like kind of like random beige shimmer. Gonna try Emblem. That looks weird too. I think part of it might be the brush, and part of it might be that these are just such like multi-dimensional shades that now I'm putting over a bright neon base. And let's try Arcturus. I'm just gonna use my finger. See, that's nice, but does not add any cohesion. I'm gonna drag that in a little bit farther. And I'm gonna go back to Cosmos on my finger. Is it better or is it worse? I don't have an answer. I'm gonna work on my lower lash line. I don't know if there's anything I can do to really help, but I'm gonna take Arcturus on a small brush. I don't want to like add new elements in here. And you know what? It is kind of a new element, but I think I'm gonna use Cetacean for the rest of my lower lash line, just because I know this is a shade that like performs a little bit nicer than those neons do. I love using Menagerie shadows on my lower lash line. Yeah, nice. I think it's not adding an extra element since it is just like so slightly different of a blue. Yeah, I definitely have some things to clean up here. The final thing, I'm just gonna take Water Mist on my inner corner. I love the brightness of that shadow. All right, that's the look. I'm going to see if this looks any better once I do the finishing touches, so I'll be right back. Okay, here's what we're working with for the final look. And actually, I do like it a little bit more than I did before. That always happens, but I don't love it. This is not going to be something that I'm going to be recreating, but I do think that, like, mascara just finishes a look. You know, it looks like a finished look now, and it's okay. My mixed feelings about this look make me that much happier that I didn't just go ahead and get it, because I'm confident that as much as I'm like mixed feelings about this look, my mixed feelings come from the placement of colors. They don't come from formula necessarily. I mean, the Terra Moons mattes are not my favorites, but I do think they're like the best of their kind because those types of really bright shadows are notoriously hard to formulate. But all that to say, I just think that if I did this same look using comparable shades from the Glamlite palette where there are comparable shades, I wouldn't like it as much as I like this, which is already not as much as I would want to like it, you know? And I think the beauty of the fact that I have these as singles means that all of these shades that I like, I have the opportunity to use them each individually in the way that I like to use them. It was fun doing this to like pull out these bright mattes and just see how they do excite me, because a lot of the times I get caught up in the love of the shimmers and I forget that I can get excited about mattes too. And maybe since I do have this made, like I could do a look where I pull in a separate crease color, I do emblem all over the lid, and I do fourth dimension on the lower lash line. I could do a similar pink look using this Luxie one and Glaminatrix petal down here. And I mean, Arcturus. Arcturus is arguably the most striking of all of these. I definitely need to do a look with this on the lid and perhaps Cosmic Blaze on the lower lash line. I feel like that would be really cool and unexpected. But either way, after that, I can put these 12 shadows back into the little palettes where they came from, and I won't have a big piece of Rick and Morty merch sitting on my makeup desk yelling at me for not using it or causing me guilt when I eventually declutter it. And the goal is the less stuff that I bring in, the less I have to declutter. I mean, obvious, but it's true. And I'm so happy with myself that I sat down, I made this, we talked about it today, and I don't have to go through the turmoil of dealing with another thing bringing into my life. I also am curious because I was just thinking when I mentioned before about the fact that I have 4 Glamlite palettes. The 2 that I don't like are both like IP/collab palettes, and the 2 that I do like are just Glamlite. And that could be for a number of factors. The 2 that I do like are more concise color stories that I feel like work well for my taste. But there are sometimes rumors that like collabs could be worse quality because the money that they would spend on the quality goes to paying the IP or the collaborator. I'm not trying to start any conspiracies here, but it is food for thought, and I thought that was interesting enough to share. I don't think I even said the 2 that I do like are the Red Velvet palette and the Chocolate Martini palette. That's gonna be everything for today though. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, and there's always way more indie makeup content on the way. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.